Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Halley from the Coach's Box. Call it like we see it podcast, and I'm here to talk about this week's slate of SEC games. We've got 7 games on tab, a lot of really good games, and we got one non-conference game played throughout the, in a way, non-conference game in October in the SEC against an FCS school. I don't know why that scheduling still happens these days, but it shouldn't. But we're going to talk about it anyway. So first off, let's take a look at the rundown of the games. We've got South Carolina going to a very angry Alabama team that has to pick themselves up off the ground after an embarrassing loss last week to Vanderbilt, which maybe Vanderbilt's not as bad as what we think they are, but it's still Vanderbilt. We have Mizzou going to Amherst to play UMass. I don't know why that game still happens, but we'll talk about that later too. We have number 1 Texas playing number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. This should be the very best of the week, I think, taking this rivalry into the SEC. Really looking forward to that game. Talk about that one. We have Mississippi State going to Georgia, number 5 Georgia. We have Florida going to, again, another very angry number 8 Tennessee after their loss to Arkansas last week. We have number 9 Ole Miss against number 13 LSU. It's a double-ranked game. I'm just not real impressed with LSU at the moment. I don't know what I think about Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback for LSU. He's had good numbers, but to me, the eye test hasn't been where I think it needs to be for them. And lastly, we have upstart, really good team in Vanderbilt that have been playing according to what they've looked like this year, but I'm still waiting for Vanderbilt to have that Vanderbilt moment. They're going to Kentucky in a big game for them as well. Big game for Kentucky. So let's get right into it. First thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about the non-con game. My Missouri Tigers going to UMass to play. Mizzou coming off it's just a bad loss at A&M last week, and they have got to pick themselves up. There's no better way to pick themselves up than going to play an FCS school and their stadium. Mizzou is a 27.5-point favorite at the moment, and I expect them to probably cover that. I think you're going to see – I would like to say as a Mizzou fan that we are going to see Drink figure this out, get the play calling under control, and then put up a lot of points against a UMass team who's only 1-5 and gave up a good number of points to Northern Illinois last week in that loss. So I see Mizzou winning this one pretty big. I say that as a Mizzou fan, but I'm going to continuously worry about Mizzou until that score is like 35-0. And I'll probably still worry a little bit that they'll find some way to go Colorado 5th down on it or something like that, because we Mizzou fans always remember Middle Tennessee State. So next on the docket is South Carolina going to Alabama. Alabama has a bad 5-point loss to Vanderbilt last week. And I say it, Vanderbilt's probably pretty good this year, but it's still a bad loss for Alabama. Coming off the week of Georgia, I think there was an emotional letdown. And, I see Alabama hopefully picking themselves up here. And it's going to be the defining moment, I think, of Alabama's season. The win over Georgia was great, but how do they pick themselves up after this? Milroe 2 weeks ago looked like the darling of the Heisman race. And while he had an okay week last week, the defense was really more of the problem. But that win probably needs to be that Heisman moment for Milroe, and he can get himself back into it. But I think he needs a really big week this week against South Carolina, who's still a really good team as well. So I expect to see some really good football out of Alabama this week, but South Carolina is not going to make it easy. The good news for Alabama, it is in Tuscaloosa. South Carolina's 3-2 going on the road. It's the noon game. So, the crowd will be into it. It will be full, just like anything else. But I also see Alabama pulling this one out in the end. We're going to go ahead and move on, talk about Ole Miss and LSU. Ole Miss going to LSU at night in Death Valley. LSU is always tough to play in those games. And I like what Lane Kiffin does. There's moments with him in some of his teams where they don't look like they're fully into it, and they're going to have to be for 60 minutes to play LSU at their place. I'm like LSU's defense. I'm like I said in the intro, I'm not quite sold on Garrett Nussmeier as quarterback. He's had really good moments, but I've seen a couple of games, and I still want to see more out of him for an LSU team that needs good quarterback play in order to continue winning and get into the playoff picture. So I'm looking forward to that as well. LSU is on a 4-game winning streak, so they do have some momentum going into it. But Ole Miss is still a really good football team. It's there. It's going to be close right now. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite. I expect it to be really close, but to me, it's a toss-up. I don't know which way I'm going to go yet. My gut tells me LSU, but my brain tells me Ole Miss. So I'm just going to call it a push for my end right there. You can't go wrong either way. But we'll look forward to see what happens there in Death Valley on that night. Now, let's move on to probably the biggest point spread. It's a 33.5 point with Georgia being the favorites over Mississippi State. Mississippi State's going to Georgia. I don't see this being a Vanderbilt upset over Alabama. This is going to be Georgia running away with it. Absolutely running away with this one. I bet you they cover the spread and then some, because I think Georgia's still a very angry team after the loss to Alabama that they really wish that they could have back. Mississippi State is reeling at 1-4. It's in Sanford Stadium. This is going to be Georgia and Carson Beck and his offense going wild all over the Bulldogs. So look for Georgia to cover the spread on there, all 33.5 points at the moment. We'll see if that line changes before Saturday, but you can put that one in the books. I'll just say that now. Next up, let's move on to Florida going to Tennessee, number 8 Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a bad loss to Arkansas, 19-4, 19-14. The offense just wasn't generating what it needed to. I think Sam Pittman in Arkansas had a really good game plan for Tennessee, but I also expect Tennessee to kind of figure out what teams are going to do, because that game footage got sent to, I'm sure, every coach in the SEC on how to shut down Tennessee. But I expect them to make some adjustments, and then probably I think they're going to put up a lot of points against a Florida team that's just not very good. They're 3-2. They're still kind of reeling. Florida's just an enigma. Which team's going to show up? But I think a very angry Tennessee at Neyland Stadium under the lights is going to very much handle this. I expect a big night from Tennessee's quarterback. I'm going to mispronounce his name, Nico, whatever his name is, but he's going to have a very big night tonight as well, or that night as well, and carry Tennessee to, I think, a big victory, way over the 15.5 point spread that Tennessee is the favorite, probably close to, I'd say they win by 24 or so. We're going to talk. Let's move on to Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Vanderbilt goes to Kentucky. Vanderbilt probably has, I'm going to say it, they're going to have that emotional letdown after the big win over Alabama and going. I see Kentucky pulling this one out. Mark Stoops has done a really good job of game planning this year. Both teams are 3-2. I look for Kentucky, because right now Kentucky is a 2-touchdown favorite. I look for Kentucky not to cover. They're not going to get 2 touchdowns over Vanderbilt, but I do look for Kentucky to get the win here at home over a Vanderbilt team that is still really good. But I'm waiting for them, like I said earlier, for have that Vanderbilt moment. That might be this week. Look for Kentucky to get the win here. And lastly, we're going to cover the Red River rivalry, the first one of the SEC era. It's going to be Texas, Oklahoma. It's afternoon game in the Cotton Bowl. So Texas right now is a 2-touchdown favorite over Oklahoma. And you can always throw the spread, you can throw everything, the numbers out the window with this rivalry. It goes back a long way to the old Big 8 days and everything. And it's still going to kind of be, I think, Texas in this game. I believe I haven't seen otherwise, but I think Quinn Ewers expects to start today, or start in this game. And I think the quarterback play for Texas is going to carry, and their defense are going to carry them to a win over Oklahoma. But I'm really excited for this game, and I can't wait to see what type of game plan Oklahoma's defense has against Texas' very good offense. And can they get to the quarterback, whether it's Ewers, whether it's Manning? If they can get to the quarterback, it's going to make it for a very long day, and it's going to give Oklahoma a chance. But that's the only way Oklahoma's going to have a chance, is if they can figure out a way to disrupt the timing of Texas's offense. If Texas is able to do what they want, this is going to be a very long day for the Oklahoma defense. I expect, because right now Texas, like I said, two touchdown favorite. I do expect Texas to win. I expect it to be probably a 7.1 touchdown game. Whoever has the ball last is going to win. So thank you very much. Appreciate the week. Appreciate the chance to do this. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Coach's Box. We're on Facebook, YouTube, the X, Twitch, and you can find us on Spotify as well. So give us a follow. Look forward to seeing you. Have a great week.